Hey, what's up? Rick Janis here with Forgingfire.com. Today we're going to be animating a flourish. This is actually part 2 of a series. The other part was making a flourish, and it was located in Illustrator. There should be a link if you missed that tutorial to go ahead and go back and review it if you want to. So if you're following along, this is what we're going to be creating. And just a warning that this is taped at 5 frames per second, so it's not going to be real fluid, but take my word for it, it is actually very fluid and smooth animating. So there you have it. And the first thing we need to do is some housekeeping in Illustrator, so let's pack our bags and head over. So the first thing you want to do is go to File, Open, and open your flourish that you made before. So let's go ahead and get to that. And mine was test flourish.eps. So we're going to go ahead and open that. And the first thing we need to do is save this out as an Illustrator file. So let's do that. You can do that by hitting Command-Shift-S to save as, or Control-Shift-S on a PC. And we're going to, from the Format drop-down, choose Adobe Illustrator document. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I already have one, so I'm going to replace mine. Pick my option, sure. And then we'd like to get rid of this little leafy end here. I'm not too crazy about it, so I'm actually going to get rid of it. This is what we had originally done in the flourish that we did to start with. I'm also going to zoom out on the stage to remind you that everything is still there on the stage. When we first created this, we used the Flourish Master Pack, so what we have to do is get rid of everything. Now we could just copy and paste the flourish into another file, but I'll show you a really easy way to get rid of everything. Just hit Option Command 2 on a Mac, and that will unlock the text that's on the stage, because I did lock it down so that you wouldn't accidentally drag and drop it somewhere. You can also do that by Alt Control 2 on a PC, and then we're going to hit Command or Control A to select everything, and then if we hit the Z on the keyboard and draw a rectangle over the stage in the center to zoom in, then hit V to get back to the selection tool, hit Shift, and then draw another rectangle over the stage. That essentially deselects it, and if we zoom back out by hitting Z again and Alt or Option on the keyboard, you'll get the minus sign, which will zoom you back out. You can see everything else but the flourish is selected, so we're going to go ahead and hit Delete, and then as you can see, everything's gone. And we know that because if we hit Command A, we see this little bounding box, and it's only around the flourish. If there was something else there, it would be wider if we had missed something. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this, hit V to get back to the selection tool, and click off of it. Now I'm going to go to the layers palette to see what we've got going on there. Twirl it down. So basically everything is in one layer, and it's all just a bunch of paths. So what we need to happen here is for everything to be on its own layer. So let's go to the flyout menu on the corner here and choose Release to Layer Sequence, and that'll pop everything onto its own layer. Now it's still within layer 1, so we need to grab layer 2, hit Shift and select the last one. That'll select everything, and then drag it outside of layer 1. Then we can take layer 1 and throw it away. Now if you remember from the tutorial that we did, this is 2 pieces. So in order to streamline our animation, we're actually going to combine these two so we only have one element to animate versus 2 to animate and then sync up. So let's go ahead and select both of them, and let's go to our Pathfinder palette and choose Add to Shape, and then click Expand, and that'll get rid of the intersecting lines. So let's zoom back out. Now the next thing that we need to do that would be very helpful, if we get back to the Layers palette, we need to go through this and start seeing where everything is. And ideally we would like to separate this into 2 regions. We want our leaves and we want our vines. Oh, another thing, now that we've combined the 2 elements, the 2 vines, we've got an empty layer here, so we can just take that empty layer and throw it away. So the next thing that we need to do is name these in 2 different regions. We want the leaves and we want the vines. So if you look at the thumbnails, it's pretty easy to tell which are vines and which are leaves. So this is the first one. We're going to go ahead and drag that on top, and then we'll drag the other vines on top. So these 2 will animate before the one that is curling this way, and then these are the last 2 flowers. So let's go ahead and drag these down to the bottom. This rooster tail right here is going to be right after the vines, and then these 6 leaves are going to animate after the rooster tail. So basically we're going to be animating from this way out. So this is the first element, this first vine. This rooster tail is the second element, then 3rd, 4th, 5th, then these vines, 6, 7, 8, then these leaves, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So you get the drift. So we basically just want to arrange our elements in order that they're going to be animating. So we've got the rooster tail second, then we've got these leaves, but they're not in order, so let's get those in order. And then we've got the other vines, but we're actually going to be animating this in 2 sections. We're going to animate the vines first, and then we're going to animate the flowers second, because it'll be 2 types of animation. One will be animating by stroke to reveal, and then the next will be animating by scale. So all of the flowers or leaves will scale in, all of the vines will be revealed. So if that's too much to remember, don't worry about it, we're going to go through it all. So that's the first leaf in that section, then we've got the second and hopefully the third, which we do. Then we've got that one, and that one, and actually this leaf should be on the bottom of that one, of the pink one, because we're going to actually, this will be the last leaf to animate in, aside from these 2. So I think we're all set here, except this one could actually be on the bottom, because that'll be the actual last leaf to animate in. So I think we're all set now. So why don't we head over to Illustrator. We should also save this out. So just hit Command or Control S to save it. We've already got it in AI. We're all set to go. So I'll see you over in After Effects. So I did forget to mention one last thing. We are going to actually reverse this out. So what I mean by reverse is we're going to change its color to white. Because what we're eventually going to do with this is, once we've animated this, we're going to export this as a pre-multiplied movie from After Effects so that you can use it in any program, and it can drop out the transparency without having to worry about, setting a matte to get rid of the black background and all of that stuff. So why don't we go ahead and double click in the color picker here in the tool palette and just drag the selection to white. Now we're good. Let's save this again and let's head over to After Effects. So let's double click in the project pane and that will bring up our import dialog box, and we're going to go ahead and import the flourish that we saved out from Illustrator. And in the import as dialog drop down, we're going to choose composition cropped layers, and basically what this will do is recognize the layers that we made in Illustrator and it'll bring them in their order. So let's go ahead and click open. And then if we double click on Test Flourish, we'll see that these are all, if we drag the layers palette up, we'll see that it's all in the order that we actually brought it in. So we know that the first four are the vines, and those are what we're going to be working with first. So I'm just going to solo the first layer so that we can get started on animating the vines. Going to get the zoom tool by hitting Z on the keyboard and zoom in on it a little bit. So let's go ahead and grab the pen tool and start tracing the shape. And if we click and drag, we can get a curved path. And then just go ahead and trace it all the way around, making your curves. And for this one right here, we're going to want to go about right through the middle of this because we're going to be putting a stroke on this and it's going to need to cover the entire area. So just keep going. And that should be just about good. So now go into your effects and presets and type in stroke. And from the generate menu, take the stroke and toss it on there, and you can see there's a white line indicating that we've applied stroke to it. In the effects pane, dial up brush size until you cover this area right here. So that looks about good, and we're going to choose reveal original image from the paint style drop down. And if we click on the end stopwatch, hit U on the keyboard, it'll twirl down the stroke effect in the layers palette. So we'll go ahead a few seconds to say about 4 seconds. Yeah, make it 3 seconds, I guess. Add a keyframe. We'll go back to the first one, and in end we'll type 0. And then if we scrub through the timeline, we should be able to see it being animated. Pretty slick. So we're going to go ahead and apply this to the rest of the layers. So let's go ahead and trace everything else. I'm going to turn off solo for this layer and turn it on for the next layer. And then we can just go ahead and trace again. So let's grab the pen tool with the right layer selected, add the stroke. And it doesn't have to be perfect because of course we're scaling up the stroke anyway. So drop stroke down on there, increase the stroke size, hit U, click on the end stopwatch, hit U, and actually let's hit U for this one too. We're going to hit Shift on our keyboard and scrub the timeline so that it snaps to the keyframe on the first layer. And then we're also going to set a keyframe here. And we'll go back to the first keyframe and set it to 0. And I forgot to set the paint style to reveal original image, no problem. Now if we scrub through, we see that it's animated. If we actually click off that layer, we can actually see it. And even though the stroke wasn't perfect that we applied to it, it was big enough that it's going to cover and reveal the whole thing. So we're going to apply easing to this. We're going to, you can either hit F9 on your keyboard or right click or control click once you've hit it and just choose easy ease. And that'll just give it a little bit smoother of an animation. So now that we have this one, let's also toggle this. So you can see that we've actually done the bottom ones. We're actually going to duplicate this layer, so hit Command D and that'll duplicate it, and we're going to scale it up. And we basically just want to move it into position for this one, the large one, just to save us a little bit of time on animation. So that looks about good, and then we can go ahead and delete the one that isn't animated. Now let's go ahead and sync these up, why not? So let's drag them forward on the keyboard in time by selecting the two layers, and basically we're going to start the animation once this one hits. So drag those layers back, and that looks pretty good. Maybe it could go back one more frame. There we go. And we're actually going to want the top one to take a little longer, so if we hit U on the keyboard and just drag its last keyframe out, so it takes just a little bit longer, it's not growing at the same speed as the other one. Alright, so let's get the last one animated, which would be this one here. Let's go ahead and grab our pen tool and just trace it. With it selected in the layers palette, go ahead and trace it. And as par for the course, it doesn't have to be perfect, just so that it does a decent job of staying somewhat close to the stroke. So let's apply stroke to this. Let's turn up the brush size so that we cover it all. Hit the end stopwatch, change paint style to reveal original image, and let's drag its layer out in time a little bit. Let's hit Shift on the keyboard to snap it to the first frame. Let's hit U to twirl down the stroke in the layers palette. And we lost the keyframe, so we have to go find it. Let's go ahead and set another keyframe, drag it back to the first frame, hit it to 0. And let's sync up the animation. And let's also choose Easy Ease. Make sure that this is to 0, that the end component to the stroke effect is at 0 on the first frame. And that looks pretty good. So let's get started with the other elements. Let's turn these off, except for the first one. And then let's get the rooster tail. So with it selected, we're going to be animating its rotation. So let's hit R. Let's hit Shift. We're also going to be animating position, so hit Shift and P. We're also going to be animating opacity, so hit Shift and T. And we're also going to be animating scale, so hit Shift and S. And that should bring up position, scale, and rotation. So the first thing that we need to do is change its anchor points. Let's go ahead and get the pan behind tool, and that's located up here. And then just click on the center and drag the anchor point to the center. Then we're going to set keyframes for all of these by hitting the stopwatch and just dragging down. Gonna move forward in time, hit more keyframes, go back in time, and here we're gonna want to rotate it back. Gonna adjust the scale. And it looks like we're not going to need to adjust its position, so we can go ahead and get rid of that one. So let's go ahead and also adjust the opacity. On the first frame, we're going to want it to be 0. Then if we go forward a few frames by hitting Command and the forward arrow key, and let's adjust its opacity to 100 here. And then we can also set Easy Ease for these. Let's delete this last opacity keyframe. So we should be good with that. Let's go ahead and turn off solo, and we should have our vines. We zoom out, should have our vines being animated. So now let's work on the leaves. So we can tell what are leaves because the layers haven't been touched. So we're going to be adjusting scale on these. So let's go ahead and just select the first one. Let's go ahead and zoom in on these. And just like we had changed the anchor point for the rooster tail, we're going to also change the anchor point for all of these, and we're going to have them sit right at the bottom of each of these leaves because they're going to pop up, they're going to scale up like that. from the bottom point to look like it's growing out of the stem. So let's go ahead and grab the pan behind tool with the layer selected. Go ahead and drag each one, selecting its layer, and just doing it for each and every one of these. Alright, so now that that's done, we can just go to the first flower and hit S for scale to reveal scale in the layers palette. We're going to hit the stopwatch, set it to 0, drag it forward, going to set the scale to 140, then drag it forward, and we're going to set the scale to 100. And what this will do is it'll give it some bounce. So that looks pretty good. We like that. Let's apply some easy ease to this. And let's select these keyframes and hit Command or Control C to copy them. Select the next layer and shift click all the way down to the bottom layer so you have the rest of them selected, and hit Command or Control. First you need to drag the CTI to the first frame, and then hit Command or Control V to paste the scale, and then what you should have is all of them animating. And now it's just up to timing. So we know that the first three are these. So let's go ahead and drag these out into time. The first one should animate right about there, and then you just stagger the rest. And that looks like it might be a little bit too far, so let's go ahead and drag that layer back. That looks about right, so let's stagger them from here. And they don't need a ton of time between them, but it should be enough that it doesn't look like they're scaling up at the same time. So that looks pretty good. So the next ones that we have are the next three leaves, so let's get those in place. So that's about where we want it to start. So let's stagger these. And that looks pretty good. Then the next flower or leaf. That looks pretty good. Then the next one happens a ways later, somewhere around here. So let's drag that layer. And it could happen just a tad bit sooner. That's pretty good. Then the next one is going to happen right around here. So let's just drag this layer. And that's good. These last two layers are going to happen when these two vines split, so right about there. That looks good, and that looks good. So why don't we go ahead and render this out and see what we've got. So we've got a few timing issues. It looks a little bit slow overall, so just go back in and adjust the timing of these and get it synced up the way you want it. You know, this might be good for you. I don't know. I would personally like to see it a little bit faster and just kind of popping on. So this is dragging just a little bit. But anyway, like I said, just go ahead and go through and adjust your timing, and it should be okay for you. So I hope you learned something, and we'll see you on the flip side.